Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Meetinghouse today, where we have conversation on religion and American life. All the news, commentary, and conversation about what's happening in America on the religious front. The big story, of course, over the past week has been the Gallup organization releasing their information that now a minority of American people are affiliated with a local congregation. This has generated an enormous amount of commentary all across the religious landscape, and I have a commentary on it today as well. I'm coming to you from our North Carolina, the Blue Ridge studio, just outside of Hendersonville, North Carolina. Thank you, wherever you are, for joining by radio, by Facebook, by YouTube, in whatever way you're listening to us today. I thank you very much. Of course, we are broadcasting on Rejoice Radio in Glenn County, Georgia, and also through the television ministry of St. Stephen's Church in Louisville, Kentucky. We're on Facebook Live. I have 5 news stories today, as always, brought to you by my friends out in California, PerfectoCoffeeInc.com. Have you ordered any coffee from them yet? Go to PerfectoCoffeeInc.com and order some coffee. Tell them, if you can, that you heard about it in the Meetinghouse. I'm going to show you a little longer video today about the founders and owners of that company, Bruce and Jennifer Long, who were students of mine a few years ago at Georgetown College. Now, those of you who listened last week, remember that I did a John Prine special. I had 2 guests. Shortly before that show went on the air, a friend of mine sent me, knowing what I was going to do, sent me a video, a 2-minute video of a song that another fan of John Prine's had made, but I didn't have time to watch it before the show. But after the show, I watched it. It is a wonderful original tribute to John Prine, written and performed last year. So it's been up on YouTube all year, and I'm going to play that in just a minute. My commentary today, as I hinted earlier, is entitled "Why People Are Quitting Church." Many of you know that I quit my congregation last year because of the drama that was going on in the church. I wrote a column about it entitled "I'm Taking a Walk," which, as some of you will know, is the title of a John Prine song. But I'm not walking away from God or Jesus or church altogether, but many people are. It's unclear yet how many of these people who are quitting a local congregation are also giving up on Jesus or no longer believing in God and all of that. I have some thoughts about that later in the show. And then, of course, you know that this past Monday night, I finally launched my online Bible class, Dr. Moody's Bible class. And we got off to a wonderful start. I've had 20 people pre-enroll, and not all of them were able to attend, but it's still open. You can go to my website at themeetinghouse.net, and right there on the home page, there is some information about that class. I'm going to be teaching on the Lord's Prayer to begin with. I hope every minister, every pastor in the world takes the Lord's Prayer as a preaching, teaching text, because in my judgment, it's the most important collection of words in human history. I'm going to say that again, the most important collection of words in human history. We talked about that in the Bible class this last Monday. Some people, when I ask the question, what's the most widely known portion of Scripture, some people will say, well, it's the 23rd Psalm, or it's John 3:16, or maybe the stories of creation, or the story of the crucifixion, something like that. But the most widely memorized, most oft recited text in the Bible is the Lord's Prayer. 1 billion or more Christians use it every time they go to a worship service. And of course, it's a central part of the rosary as well. It's hard to overstate how ubiquitous this prayer is. As a matter of fact, many times when a movie or a novel wants to interject a religious component into the narrative, what they will do is work the Lord's Prayer into a worship service or into a private prayer, or they'll quote it. In this way, the Lord's Prayer just kind of represents all there is of Christianity. And this is not altogether wrong, because it does summarize what we believe, it summarizes how we are to live, and it summarizes how we are to pray. And this is what I'm going to be teaching on Monday night. If this interests you, if this might feed your soul, you can join us. You can go to the website, themeetinghouse.net, and right there on the homepage will be more information about it. So now let's start the news, as we always do. Brought to you by Perfecto Coffee of Paris, California. My first story, again from Houston. It's about Beth Moore. She's been in the news constantly for the last few months. You remember I reported some weeks ago that she renounced her affiliation with the Southern Baptist Convention because they were not paying enough attention to the issue of sexual abuse in the Southern Baptist churches. They were dismissive of her, as you remember. And now she has attacked through a series of tweets, one of the bedrock principles of much of American Christianity. It's known as complementarianism. Complementarianism. It's a big word, but it means this simple thing, that some things men can do and some things women can do, both in the church and in society. And one of the things that women cannot do, according to this teaching, is to lead, preach, teach, and exercise authority in the church or in a seminary. This, of course, has been the dominant teaching in the church, the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, most of the Protestant churches from the very beginning, or at least in the modern world. And a few years ago, when I was a student at a Southern Baptist seminary and had raised in the Southern Baptist, the whole convention was engulfed in a big fight over this issue, because people who wanted to embrace the women, organizationally speaking, and give them authority and power and opportunity and a voice and a platform, these people were considered liberals, and that they were giving in to modernity and were abandoning the Bible, no longer believed the Bible. And of course, they won. And all of us who had more expansive view of church leadership, we got pushed out. Well, Beth Moore, the very popular, perhaps the most influential female in the Southern Baptist network, she tweeted last week, quote, "I beg your forgiveness where I was complicit in teaching this old doctrine. I could not see it for what it was until 2016. I plead your forgiveness for how I just submitted to it and supported it and taught it," end quote. You know, she said, "I did not see it." Jesus talked to us many times about being able to see things, to perceive it, to understand it, to notice what's going on. And Beth says she did not see how this complementarian doctrine, which so rules much of Christianity, as a matter of fact, much of Judaism and Islam, of marginalizing women. Thank God there's been a renaissance in American Christianity of women leading, thinking, writing, protesting, marching, preaching, pastoring, launching. It's a good thing. We are better for it. And we can thank Beth Moore for perhaps lately, finally, coming to that realization as well. And then in Atlanta, Seems like there's always a story coming out of Atlanta. There's a new prayer book in the news this week, and for all the wrong reasons. Many of us use prayer books. I have a whole stack on my shelf right behind me. Some of them you will recognize. But this prayer book, A Rhythm of Prayer, has generated a call, a protest, a demand that it be removed from stores and websites. The title, A Rhythm of Prayer, a collection of meditations for renewal, end quote. It's edited by a Christian author, Sarah Bessey. I do not know this Sarah Bessey. I have not read this book. Although reading this news story made me want to go out and buy a copy and to interview Sarah. The book is a collection of prayers by various people. One of them is entitled Prayer of a Weary Black Woman. It was written by a womanist theologian by the name of Shaniqua Walker Barnes. Shaniqua Walker Barnes. She's on the faculty of the Baptist-affiliated McAfee School of Theology in Atlanta. Well, the prayer contains this line, and this is what has caused so much consternation. Dear God, please help me to hate white people. Dear God, please help me to hate white people. It's jarring, isn't it? You know what it sounds like? It sounds like some of the Psalms. Some of the Psalms have this kind of language where people are angry and emotionally distraught over how they're being treated by other people, and they call upon God to destroy them. You remember the disciples of Jesus did this as well. Wanted God to destroy somebody that was doing or saying something. Well, it seems that Fox News got hold of this book, and many of their Christian followers are leading the charge against it. They're demanding things. They're saying all sorts of mean things about it. As a matter of fact, I tried to get hold of Shaniqua Walker Barnes and invite her on the show today, but I understand that she's just been swamped with meanness and rudeness and anger and viciousness. She posted on her own personal website an explanation of the racial trauma that she was going through that prompted this prayer. Too many people are experiencing racial trauma. Just this week, I've seen the videos, and of course, we're all watching the development of the trial up in Minneapolis. From Washington, D.C., I have two stories today. The Supreme Court, for the 11th time since November, the court used a late Friday night unsigned opinion from a case that had not had oral arguments. All of this, a serious deviation from normal court procedure. But this one was another order about religious freedom in a 5-4 decision in which all three of the Trump justices sided with the majority. The court ruled again against the state of California and in favor of home Bible studies. California had imposed some restrictions on these gatherings in an effort, as you know, to fight the COVID pandemic. But the court declared the state had violated the right of these citizens and these Christians. All I can say is that religion is on a roll in the Supreme Court. I need to do a whole show on this. Now, religious liberty people are concerned about this, but also the court watchers who are less concerned about the specific judgments or the decisions, but more about the process of the court not hearing oral arguments, intervening in the normal appellate process, ordering things in very brief 1 or 2 page orders, unsigned, without any rationale, late on Friday night. this is a concern from that angle. And of course, the whole issue of religious freedom and how, and the preferences that religion is now receiving at the Supreme Court. I have a philosophy about this. I have a theory about it that I'm going to devote a whole show to very soon. We will talk about it. Again, in Washington, D.C., the news, Planned Parenthood Federation of America announced a new slate of faith leaders for its clergy advisory board, including ministers from states often considered hostile to the work of the agency. Included are new members from these states: Tennessee, Kansas, North Carolina, Georgia, Illinois, West Virginia, Nebraska, and California. Some of these are among the reddest states where state legislatures are passing all sorts of restrictions on abortion in the hopes that these will be challenged in court and move up the appellate chain to the Supreme Court, hoping that the Supreme Court will overturn Roe v. Wade. This is a drama that's been going on for decades. Whether or not this court, these 9 members, will actually do that remains to be seen. Polls in 2019, however, show majorities of most faith groups support abortion rights, including mainline Protestants, Black Protestants, and Roman Catholics. White evangelicals are the only outlier in this census. Even in Georgia, where I vote, slim majorities of both Protestants and Catholics support the availability of abortion in some or all situations. Both of these have to do with the law. And of course, maybe you saw the news this week that some Democrats are going to introduce legislation to increase the size of the Supreme Court from 9 justices to 13. That's going to be an interesting story for the next several years. Finally, and everywhere, not just in one place, but not only in America, but all over the world, the holy month of Ramadan began this week, Monday to be exact. It will continue until May the 12th. Here is a picture, a really interesting picture of from Istanbul, of the mosque at Istanbul, with the crescent moon. Practicing Muslims will fast from sunup to sundown the whole month. They also refrain from sexual activity during the day, but they always celebrate nightly with feast. And so a great deal of the interest in Ramadan has to do with food. When I went looking for a picture to put up, which you just saw, most of the pictures about Ramadan were about meals and eating and food and preparation of food and families gathered around the table eating. Eating and feasting is at the center of all religions, even as it's at the center of all human life. Muslims believe God revealed the Quran to Muhammad during the month of Ramadan, the 9th month of the Muslim calendar. They use, as you know, a lunar calendar instead of a solar calendar like the rest of the world. The month begins with the sighting of the new moon, that is a sliver of a crescent, when it appears over Mecca, the holiest site in Islam. That's all the news, or those are the top 5 stories. That's not all the news. There's a lot more news. I have on my page, on one of the pages of the website, the About page, a list of the top religion news and information websites from the Orthodox and Catholics and Muslims and the Religion News Service, Baptist. If you ever want to go to find out what's going on, that's the place to go at the meetinghouse.net/about. And now a little more about Perfecto Coffee. If you've been listening to the show, you know some of their story. They were my students when I was teaching at Georgetown College. They got married. I actually performed the ceremony in the chapel in a chapel in Louisville. That's another whole fabulous story that I don't have time to go into today. They moved to California. Bruce finished his military career. They began to have children. I think they have 3 children now. And last year, during the pandemic, about the time, a little before I started this radio show, they launched their coffee business. I interviewed Jennifer on the show last fall when it was still a radio show. And she told me this. She said, during the COVID, so many of the coffee shops had to shut down. But one of the things that they do, they have a coffee truck. And they began to take their coffee truck, like a food truck, all over their area of Southern California. The demand was so high, they were so busy that it helped their business flourish. And I began to promote their business. And actually what I do is send out a bag of coffee to all of my guests and those who help me. As a matter of fact, my engineer, Alex, told me this morning that the bag of coffee that I ordered for her had arrived at her house. And I'm glad for it because of all the above and beyond call of duty that she does in helping this show get distributed. Well, Bruce and Jennifer started the business. I began to promote it. And I want to show you a video that they produced perhaps last year about how their whole business got started. It's about them and their business. PerfectoCoffeeInc.com. Let's take a look.
I spent 15 years in the Marine Corps and enjoyed every minute of it. In fact, I wanted to retire at the end of 30. However, due to several injuries, it was time that I retired. So here I am doing this now, but my time in the Marine Corps really embodied me and made me into what I am today. Hi, my name is Bruce Long. I'm the CEO and founder of Perfecto Coffee. I was a military policeman, an MP in the Marine Corps, and oftentimes we would stop and get coffee, whether that was at a on-base location or off-base, drive-through or whatnot. Coffee was something that was essential to the whole platoon, and it was during that time I really started to focus a lot more on coffee because I didn't want to do so many energy drinks. Energy drinks were really big and still are. So I wanted to do something about that, and I started Perfecto Coffee. Perfecto Coffee is a company that was basically designed to bring gourmet coffee much closer to the consumer. We wanted to utilize locally sourced beans that are fresh. And that's one of the key components to Perfecto, the bean itself being fresh. You know, as far as our other ingredients, we all get those locally, giving back to those that give to us. I wanted to make sure that quality of taste was one of the pillars that we posted Perfecto Coffee on top of, as far as accessibility as well and affordability. Those 3 things were very important to us, and consistency as well. And that's really what Perfecto Coffee is. It's consistent, it's affordable, it's accessible, and it's great tasting coffee.
Thank you, Bruce, for all your hard work and all that you do for us and your family, and as well as our community. We really appreciate you and what you do for us.
My dad makes the best coffee. My dad is a great dad. He always thinks about things and how they should be, and he's great at being an inventor, and he's just very smart and a great dad.
I have the best dad ever. He's nice, he treats me with respect, and he cares about people, and that's what a good dad does.
You know, I would like to say if there's any veterans out there that, you know, I don't know everything, but if I can help them out in any way, you know, please feel free to send me an email, contact me, call me, you know, and I'll do anything I can. And if I can't help them, I'll point them in the right direction in which they can, you know.
Perfect.
Yeah?
All right.
Okay.
Good job.
Oh.
I recorded it.
Oh. I was getting ready to say it. Good to go.
Perfecto Coffee Inc., Bruce and Jennifer Long. I've got a bag of the coffee right here with me. I send a bag to all the guests that appear on my show and others who help us do it. You're listening to the Meetinghouse, and normally all of our conversation is about religion in American life. And Bruce and Jennifer are very devout Christians. They are supporters of the Meetinghouse, and I'm thrilled with their success and their spirit in providing a top quality product, and do so with the spirit of hospitality and genuineness. So you can order some coffee, perfectocoffeeinc.com. Last week, my show, as I mentioned earlier, was about John Prine, about his death and his influence. As you know, he died by the COVID on April 7th, 2020. I had never heard of John, and it wasn't until June the 12th that a friend of mine in Birmingham, Alabama, posted on Facebook a video memorializing John. I watched it and got converted there on the spot. I think if there had been a pool of water, I may have been baptized all over again. Not a day has gone by that I have not listened to the music of John Prine, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why I like it. As a minister and a theologian and as a practicing Christian myself, I'm very interested in the role of religion in things. The music, the lyrics that John writes grow out of his church experience growing up in Chicago, but having roots in Kentucky, Paradise, Kentucky, down in Muhlenberg County. But there's so many Christian ideas, Christian phrases, Christian vocabulary in John's music that I liked it. I liked it not only because it was traditional, familiar language, but also because often he would flip the script. He would put an entirely new slant on a very traditional understanding of a text. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Just before the show last week, I received an email from another friend who knew I was doing the show, Jim Holliday in Louisville, Kentucky. And he sent me a video and suggested that I might want to include it in my show. I did not have time to watch it before we went live last Thursday at 1 o'clock. But after the show, I watched it. It is a terrific piece, and I want to play it for you now. This is a song. There are many people who have been writing things. As a matter of fact, not only did I watch this little video, I ordered 3 books and 2 other CDs. One of the books came, John Prine and the Gospel, which I read. I have 2 books that are coming today, I hope, and I will read them before next week. I want to play this little 2-minute video of which was composed and performed by a singer-songwriter whom I did not know, named Cassie Blanton. Cassie Blanton. She performs all over the country. I just read through her website and her new itinerary, taking her all up into New England, as well as throughout the South. She has this little song which she wrote, set to the tune of one of John Prine's tunes. And here is the chorus. Tonight in heaven, it's a happy place. They were all sick of singing Amazing Grace. Now it's fish and whistle and lean on me. Everybody singing in harmony. Tonight in heaven, it must be nice. They're all eating peaches in paradise. All of them angels lining up in a queue just to go fishing with you. Just to go fishing with you. I want you to take a look, take 2 minutes, and let's watch this video of this memorial to John Prine.
Hey John Prine, thanks for the tunes, they were sweet as peaches, crazy as loons, always telling us how to be good to each other. You smart ass, smiling, nameless lover, but it's rough down here since we got the news. Might take a miracle to kill these blues. Everybody been crying like a little girl in the wide, big old goofy world. But tonight in heaven is a happier place. They were all sick of singing Amazing Grace, and now it's fish and whistle, lean on me. Everybody singing in harmony. Tonight in heaven it must be nice. They're all eating peaches in paradise, and all of them angels lining up in a queue just to go fishing with you. Just to go fishing with you. Hey John Prine, just one more thing. You're the one who made us all wanna sing. You made it look so easy and look so fun. We'll sing a little sweeter now that you're all done. Please tell Petty we've been breaking down since. Merle and Bowie and Leonard and Prince. You got a pretty good band up there, I guess. We all wish you all the best. Tonight heaven is a happy place. They were all sick of singing Amazing Grace, and now it's fish and whistle, lean on me. Everybody singing in harmony. Tonight in heaven it must be nice. They're all eating peaches in paradise. All of them angels lining up in a queue just to go fishing with you. Just to go fishing with you. Just to go fishing with Jesus and Petty and you.
What a great video. What a great tribute to John. I have a notion. I don't know whether I'll be able to pull this off. I'm not a musician, but I'd like to have a gathering of John Prine fans to sing, where we would, as a group, sing the choruses associated with many of the John Prine songs. Here are some of my favorite. These are the first lines of many choruses from the John Prine music. What in the world has happened to you? On a dusty pew in a vestibule, sat the devil playing pocket pool. There's a hole in Daddy's arm where all the money goes. Everybody needs somebody that they can talk to. Father, forgive us for what we must do. Please don't bury me in the cold, cold ground. Your flag decal won't get you into heaven anymore. And the very last one that he wrote and recorded was not released until after his death, maybe about this time last year. Very, very popular. I remember everything. I'll be back in just a minute with my commentary for the week. As I reported a little earlier in this show, affiliation with Christian congregations has fallen off rather sharply in recent years, down from 70% to below 50% just in the last 25 years. That's the Gallup report from last week. These new statistics have drawn commentary from all quarters. The Southern Baptist, Russell Moore, whom I highly respect, in his More to the Point blog, wrote these words, and I quote, "We now see young evangelicals walking away from evangelicalism, not because they do not believe what the church teaches, but because they think the church itself does not believe what the church teaches. The presenting issue in this secularization is not science or hedonism, it's disillusionment and cynicism," end quote. Very powerful words. And then there's the Roman Catholic writer for the New York Times, Ross Douthat. He wrote in his column on Sunday these words, describing, quote, institutional faith's general weakness, its limited influence, its subordinate position to other personal affiliations, from partisanship to ethnic identity to sports or superhero fandom, end quote. He notes, quote, religion's extreme marginalization with the American intelligentsia, end quote. Of course, by which he means university trained, graduate school, people who teach and research and write. And then there's professor, scholar, and pastor Ryan P. Burge. He wrote his book called The Nuns, Where They Came From, Who They Are, and Where They Are Going. You remember he was on our show 2 weeks ago. I've got a copy of his book right here. I've read this and reviewed it on the website. You can go to themeetinghouse.net and read my review of it. This is the kind of book that reading groups in churches and Sunday school classes need to get a hold of and read. It's very accessible. It's very plain for the non-specialist. Ryan, Dr. Burge and I, he's a pastor as well as a scholar and a professor. We talked about it two weeks ago, and that podcast is up on the website at themeetinghouse.net, and you can go and listen to all of it. In chapter 2 of the book, Burge offers an answer to this question: why is all this happening? And he means, of course, this departure from church life. Here are his 7 answers. Secularization, which is very common, been around for a long time. That is, secularization as an explanation about why adherence to religion is or should decline. Number 2, the internet. He said on the show 2 weeks ago that the decline in the number of people attending or being a member of a church corresponds almost precisely with the launch of the internet. And then there's politics, by which he means, of course, that large religious blocs, sometimes what we call the religious right, have gotten so connected with a political party, in this case the Republican Party, that merger has disillusioned people, has pushed people out of both the Republican Party and out of the churches. Socialization, he says. Another one, loss of trust in institutions. Another one, change in family structure, by which he means people are not getting married, people are not having children, that the birth rate in America has declined, except among many immigrants. But as you know, and I know, having been a pastor for many years, that children have often brought people back to church. Kids would go to college, they would get married, they would kind of drop out of church for a while, but when the kids start coming, they want their kids to be raised in the church. So they would start attending church again. But if people are not getting married and not having children, you lose that extra motivation for affiliating with the church. And then there is what social scientists call social desirability bias. I was not familiar with this, but it is the tendency of people to do things when they think that it enhances their social standing. We're very familiar as church leaders about how this works. People they move into a community to establish a practice or start a business or, run for office. They want to join the church. Now, Burge, in the book and on the show 2 weeks ago, he said the top 3 reasons that he found most compelling were secularization, the internet, and politics. But I'm not so sure he's right. The question of why people disengage from church life will be very similar to why they engage in the first place. As a theologian and a minister myself, I think the two are connected, but not in the way that we might think immediately. Each one of us, as an individual, as a member of a family, we all have stories about why we connected with the church or why we left a church. And these stories could involve a family tradition. They could recount a traumatic episode like I have recounted in my church last year. They could draw attention to a very talented minister, a charismatic preacher that has the ability to draw people in. Or, as many people can attest, it could have been a romance. You wanted to date somebody, so you went to church. You wanted to court them, so you went to church with them. This has happened many, many times. There are a million what we might call micro causes to explain why people join a church and why people leave a church. And all of them are true. All of them can be legitimate. All of them compelling. But it is the micro cause, not the small personal rationale, but the big issue, those sweeping culture-wide conditions that impact all of us in the ways that are profound but subtle, ways that are pervasive but unseen. Now, that's what Ryan Burge sought to do in his book. But I think he only went halfway up. His 7 reasons, of course, are higher, broader, and deeper than any individual narrative, but they're lower than what we might call the intellectual atmosphere that envelops all of us all the time. I want to put Dr. Burgess' 7 suggestions in the kind of this intermediate state. They are, if I can quote John Prine again, halfway there. Now, here's the way I think we should say it. Christianity in particular, and religion in general, has failed to offer a comprehensive and compelling interpretation of human life on planet Earth in the modern era. I want to say that again. Christianity has failed to offer a comprehensive and compelling interpretation of human life on planet Earth in the modern era. That is who we are and why we are here and what all of this means. Specifically, the Christian faith and religion, our leaders and thinkers and writers, our pastors, have responded in an inadequate and unconvincing way to the challenges brought to human society in the modern era. I want to say that again. We have responded inadequately and unconvincingly to the challenges brought to human society by these things. And I want to list 5. Number 1, science. Now, science has been in a tug of war with religion and theology for 400 years. But still, we have not learned as a religion, as a faith, as the Christian community, really how to integrate scientific understanding with religious understanding, especially the scientific study of the Bible, which emerged about 150 years ago, or in more recent days, something like global warming. Number 2, race. Now, we're right now in the middle of an enormous, powerful, influential racial awareness movement. We are being awakened to the history of race in our history, to the presence of racial injustice in our society. But our religion, Christianity, has been complicit in the racism that has brought death and destruction and diminishment to so many people. We are just now discovering its history and its perennial power to corrupt religion. Number 3, gender and sex. Now, they are not the same thing. I mentioned in the top of the hour the story about Beth Moore. Christianity has not been able to come to grips with the fundamental equality and capabilities of women. The majority of the Christian movement still marginalizes women. Many of the largest places do not allow women to speak or hold authority or lead the mass. And then there is sex. Since the sexual revolution back in the 60s, the rise of the pill, sexual behavior has become a subject of experimentation and a deviation from historic norms. And yet the Christian and even the religious communities have not been able to integrate human sexual activity and human sexual experience into their understanding of what is right and wrong, what is appropriate and what is inappropriate for the flourishing of human people. Number 4, world religions. There was a time when the Christian message was, we're right and everybody else is wrong. Everybody else needs to convert to Christianity. But now that we're much more aware of the frailties and failings of our own religion, and we have come into contact and learned a great deal more about what is good and right and just in other religions, we haven't been able to integrate the side-by-side existence of world religions into our understanding of God and God in the world. Number 5, world history, especially as it relates to this notion of the end of the age, the end of the world. A great deal of our politics, especially being driven by the white evangelicals, is fascinated and fixated on this idea of the end of the world and the afterlife. Much of it shaped, I think, more by the Left Behind series than by the Bible and Christian theology. Some preachers, scholars, and theologians have done well in trying to craft a fresh vision of Christian faith for the modern world. I want to mention the late, great Hans Kung, the Catholic scholar who just died last week in Germany. Or the very much alive Brian McLaren, the pastor, author, and public speaker, whom was one of the first people I interviewed for a podcast about a little over a year ago. But most Christian leaders have opted for short-term skirmishes and an occasional victory, such as winning an election, or shall we say, redeeming a denomination. Like what happened in my own denomination, the Southern Baptist Convention. They thought they were going to save the world by redeeming the convention from something. But we have not framed a compelling interpretation of these things within an understanding of Christian history and ideas. In other words, we have lost credibility as interpreters of human life and human experience. I want to say that again. We've lost credibility as interpreters of human life. Traditional interpretations of these things have failed to win the allegiance of the intelligentsia, even the Christian intelligentsia. This uneasiness about what we believe and what we see in the world has oozed through concentric circles of society, including into most of the churches. When this level of existential unease is prevalent, any ordinary controversy can push a person over the edge into unbelief, or at least into disconnection from their congregation. And that is what has happened. People at all levels of belief are leaving. They're cutting loose. They're striking out for other shores in search of significance and wisdom and even salvation. They offer their own experience as an excuse, a bad preacher or an ugly episode in the church or some personal situation. But these are micro causes. They're true, but the real explanation is much bigger, broader, deeper, wider, much more serious. I want to say this: some things will not work. Finding a new pastor, revising the liturgy, launching a new ministry, these will not work. They are inadequate responses to what surrounds us. What we need are prophets, thinkers, visionaries, leaders like Moses and Isaiah and Paul, even Jesus himself. This is what we need for a new renaissance, a new reformation, a new dawning of authentic Christianity or religion in general in our world today. What we need is a fresh word from the Lord. That's what I think. I'm Dwight Moody in the Meetinghouse. I'll be back in just a minute. You're in the Meetinghouse. I'm Dwight Moody, your host. Thank you for joining me today. I want to know what you think about leaving church. Have you left church? Write me at dwight@themeetinghouse.net or text me if you know my phone number. It's on the website. Post on the Facebook page of themeetinghouse.net. I'd like to know your story. I'd like to know what you think about leaving church. Have you left church? Have your children left church? One of the things that I'm most interested in are the adult children of devout Christians, even the adult children of ministers. As a matter of fact, I'm preparing a social survey, an inventory, a questionnaire that I hope I can distribute. I'm looking for some social scientists who will help me, to encourage me and help me produce a really good research tool. But I may distribute it through this show and through the newsletter. I'm interested specifically in this as a minister myself with 3 adult grown children. I'm interested in what we can find out about the adult children of ministers, whether they are as committed to the faith and to church and to Christ as their parents. I'm very interested in this. I'd like to know what you think. I'd like to know about your children. So write me. Now, about the Circle of 70. You've heard me talk about this. Are you a member of the Circle of 70? I set this up last year when I decided I needed to appeal for support from the readers of the newsletter and the listeners of the radio show and now the watchers of the television show. I set it at 70 because at the time I was 70 years old. I'm now 71, but I'm staying with the 70. We're up to 25. So we're almost a third of the way there. The most recent is Dr. David Wheeler of Portland, Oregon. Thank you, David. We've added your name to the Circle of 70. You can see that list. You can go on our website at support, and I have a list of the 25 people who have either given or pledged, not how much they've given or pledged, or how often they've given or pledged. But I'm trying to honor these now 25 people, and it could include you. Why not add your name to this list? We need your help in funding our expansion into the television world. We have to buy equipment. We have to buy airtime. There's travel involved. I have all kinds of subscriptions involved with keeping this thing going. And then there's the Bible class. 20 people pre-registered for the Bible class. If you don't have a place to gather to talk about these things, come and be a part of us. You know, last fall when I first put this idea out there and solicited a response, I got 40 or 50 people who wrote to say, boy, I'd be interested in that. The thing I noticed about almost all of them, not all, but many, is that they were people who were no longer active in a congregation. Some of them were ministers and ministers' children and ministers' spouses. We started last week, Monday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. That's 5 o'clock out on the Pacific Coast. And we've got several people who have registered from the Pacific Coast. We've already started. I've already said that we're studying the Lord's Prayer, but you can join. It's like a merry-go-round. Not that it's a carnival or a festival, but in this sense, you can jump on at any place, anytime. And you can jump off any place, anytime. If you feel a calling, a need, if this appeals to your heart, your mind, if it challenges your commitment, if you feel compelled, you want a place where we can ask questions and seek answers together. If this you think might engage you emotionally and spiritually, intellectually, you can get on the merry-go-round when it comes around. Go to themeetinghouse.net, and right there on the homepage is more information about the Dr. Moody's Bible class. Visit my website. There it is, themeetinghouse.net. Read all the commentaries, listen to any of the podcasts, and now you can go to Facebook at themeetinghouse.net and watch any of these shows as they're archived there. This show will be up as a podcast by Saturday. Subscribe to the weekly newsletter, which is distributed every Wednesday night at 8:30 Eastern Time. It's free. You can subscribe. Just this week, I received this note from a reader, quote, I faithfully read and watch you every week because you feed my soul. Thank you for continuing on your vision of reaching everyone with the gospel of Jesus. End quote. You can write me also. I would appreciate it. Thank you for listening today, coming to you over themeetinghouse.net and rejoice975.com in the southeastern United States, 97.5 FM, 94.7 FM in Glenn County, Georgia. That's Brunswick, St. Simon's Island, Sea Island, Jekyll Island. And now we're on SSS Live TV through St. Stephen's Baptist Church of Louisville, Kentucky. It's been a great partnership, and I look forward to it. I want to thank my engineer, Everett Armstrong, down in the Golden Isles of Georgia. My engineer, Alex Mattingly, working with the Louisville-based television crew of St. Stephen's Church. And also to the webmaster, Justin Shelf of Louisville, Kentucky. Thank all of you for listening and for writing and supporting and watching and joining and everything else. Follow me on Twitter. I'm up to 405. I got 2 more followers this week, which is good. Until next week, be safe, do justice, love mercy, wash your hands, wear a mask, get a vaccine. My second shot is next Thursday, right after this show, the Pfizer shot. Drink some coffee, order some coffee from perfectocoffeeinc.com. Join the Circle of 70. Pray for the soul of America. Be kind to everyone. People are struggling. Give thanks to God. In the Meeting House, I'm Dwight Moody. Have a nice day.